Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I am your host, John Ryan, and I'm pleased to be with Kyle Hunter today of Hunter Sports. I always screw this up, Kyle. Hunter Sports Picks, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a tongue twist. I got to practice this. Anyway, sorry for the introduction, but we're doing a Monday show because you'll be traveling on Wednesday, and really appreciate the time with you today. Even though it's going to be quick, rapid fire type of stuff, it's going to be great and valuable. And I know the first game out of the chute here is a game that I would not have looked at, and it's involving New Orleans, and it's not the Pelicans, it's the college version. And I'm really excited to hear your take on this because I know you're very good at these flying under the radar type of games.
If you followed me in the past, anybody who knows me knows that where I've done the best is totals, and where I've done the very best is totals that are way under the radar. These other games that everybody's like, I'm just going to pass on this game. Who cares about Central Arkansas and New Orleans? I think these can have some really good value. Here we are late in the season in the Southland Conference, one that is way under the radar. These two teams have not been very good this year, and a strong angle late in the season. John, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this one up is it doesn't just apply to this game. It applies to a lot of games that are going to be coming up here in the next week or so. Teams who have been disappointing in the season, that have a subpar conference record, at the end of the year, those last couple games are good over bets because they usually care less about those games. Because if they're going to care about any game that's left, it's going to be the conference tournament game because they don't really have anything to play for in this. So, fun and gun, just get going. Now, the first game between these two was very high scoring. It went well over this total. And I think this one will as well. I think this one is it's lined at 154.5 now is what I see. My projection was 159 for this game. And I will say my lines are usually pretty close to what they have. So 4.5 points off is a pretty decent margin. I think this will be a high scoring game because if you look, John has it pulled up here on the Haslametrics. Look at the tempo of the two teams. These two teams are really fast. Neither team's going to slow the tempo down here. Both of these teams get to the line a good amount, and both of these teams get second chance points, and the two defenses are bad at defensive rebounding. If you don't bet totals very much, it's really important to look down there where John's pointing at the second chance conversion percentage. Nothing's more deflating than to get a defensive stop, and then the other team gets an offensive rebound and puts it back in 1 second later. And these teams do a lot of that on defense, give up a lot of those, and they play at such a fast pace. 154.5 is a high total, but I don't think it's quite high enough for these two teams. Like I said, they already played one that went over the total earlier this year, and now they're playing a game that really doesn't mean anything. I mean, why do they really care too much about this game? Sure, they want to have fun, they want to try to score, but it's not one of those games late in the season that means a lot that you would think the game would slow down and they'd play better defense. It's kind of the opposite. So I wanted to point out that while the games that are big games between two teams that have a lot to play for are good for unders, the games that have two teams that have been bad in the regular season are good for the over. So I think that's important to point that out.
Absolutely. Supporting the over is New Orleans is 9-0 after a game, allowing a shooting percentage of 55% or higher in games played over the last two seasons, and that I think that sums it up right there. They're 12-2 over after failing to cover two of their last three against the spread in games played the last two seasons. So I think you're right. I think this game feels more like a 170 point shootout at the old corral than a defensive minded one. And that is one of the fastest paces of matchups I've seen since using Haslam metrics, which is encourage everybody to check it out. It might be too much data science for some people, but for guys like Kyle and me, I mean, it's like taking us to the Outback and letting us eat porterhouse steaks all night. So
that sounds good.
I like that pick a lot.
Yeah. I think that when you look at two teams like this, the only way the over loses in this is they shoot a really poor percentage, and we know that's possible. But both of us have done this long enough. But if you get the tempo, you get two teams that are not very good at defense and give up a lot of second chance points, you have to like your odds here. This is one of those plus EV spots that we talked about before. That if they play this game 100 times, it's going to go over the total 55 times or more, I think. So, that's what we're trying to get ourselves in this situation. That is a good spot to be in. I think this is a good overlook for this game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What's the next game that you see for good action for tonight?
So Oregon USC, you want to talk about that? That's a really
Yeah,
big game in
sure, sure.
Pac-12. I think I'd argue that's the best game here tonight in college basketball. It means a lot to both teams. USC coming off that loss. Look, it's going to be easy for people to say USC is coming off that loss. You have to lay the points here. I would caution people about that. I think USC is a team that is a bit inconsistent, and Oregon is a team that rounds into form at the end of the season. Remember, John and I were talking last week about coaches who have done really well ATS from game 18 on. Number one on that list is Dana Altman from Oregon. He's, I believe, 103 and 61 or something like that ATS. Really
It's
good
incredible.
percentage. Very good percentage. And Oregon has had a lot of people out of a lot of these games lately. They're finally getting healthy. They had some COVID pause and COVID issues where players were having to sit out. Now they're almost at full strength. Oregon is a better team, though, if you just look at their record so far this year. And as John knows, some people can just look at a subset of numbers and assume, well, +4 is not enough points with them. But you have to know why that score was what it was, not just that the final score was that. And for Oregon, when you're missing 2 or 3 of your top players in that many games, they're going to look worse than what they actually are. To me, I think Oregon's a team that has a higher upside. You could probably make the argument that Oregon has either the highest or second highest upside of any team in the Pac-12, and you're getting 4 points here with Oregon, a team that has consistently been great at covering numbers late in the season. I think this will be a close game, so I'll take the points here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And for what it's worth, we had a live show earlier today with one of our teammates, Albert of Analytics Capper, and he likes the same side too, and
Great.
I do as well. So that I would say is a consensus pick among the three of us. And this is when you sprinkle the money line, and I think the wrong team's favored. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think
There's
Oregon
another.
has a real chance to win this one outright as well. Yep.
Yeah, and probably comfortably if they win. I wouldn't be surprised if final score is by 9 or 10. It could go that way. Another dog in the NBA that you mentioned to me is out west tonight, and it's the Wizards and the Lakers. And I like the Wizards quite a bit here. They've been winners of 4 in a row, 4 against the spread. Lakers without Anthony Davis are really an unimpressive team. I mean, they might be middle of the road right now. You would think that LeBron's going to put the team on his shoulders, but that didn't happen the last 2 games. And I don't trust taking the Lakers at home as a home favorite of this number. And I think Washington and sprinkling the money line again is the way to go. Are you with me
Yeah,
on that one?
yeah. I'll tell you. I think the other reason that this is, I haven't bet this game. You said, did Albert like this one as well?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so you guys both like this. I'm going to have to bet at least something on this one. I know I respect your guys' work, and I'll personally play this for something. I haven't bet this game yet, but I think the other important part of this is most people are talking only about Anthony Davis. Also, Dennis Schroeder's out, and Schroeder's a really important backup scoring option for LeBron if Davis isn't in there. I mean, Schroeder would have been the other main option to score, and he's not playing because of the COVID protocols. So LeBron's fantastic, and everybody knows he's the best player on that team. But you lose your second and third options, and the Lakers aren't terribly deep. I mean, this is not a team that has a great bench or anything like that. We know that. So LeBron, I think the Lakers will. I think they might win this game outright. I would think, but you're getting what are you getting? 7 points, seven points here. I kind of lean to the under in this one, and I think that might be slightly against what you guys have. But I lean to the under because the Lakers have played such a slow pace without Davis here these last few games. So this is a pretty high total. Having said that, the thing that's scary about betting an under with the Wizards, I mean, defense is optional at best. They're almost the Brooklyn Nets. And I will say we have to at least say the Brooklyn Nets have really turned it on here the last few games, and are kind of just outscoring people. I mean, they're obviously very talented. James Harden's been really good, so maybe their upside's a bit higher than what we thought. But in this game, I lean toward the Wizards and I lean to the under here. I can't lay points with the Lakers without their second and third options. LeBron is fantastic, but in the NBA, when you have to have somebody else that's a good option. Kuzma is really inconsistent. I mean, you never know what you're going to get from him. The Lakers are clearly a very good team, and once Anthony Davis comes back, they're going to start beating up on people again. And when they have full strength, they'll be the favorites to win the title, and I understand that. But they're laying a few more points here than they should be in the situation, certainly.
Yeah, I agree with the whole breakdown. That was a good breakdown, Kyle, as always. Any other game that you want to mention here? Because I know you're short on time, but we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, let's just briefly cover the Hornets and Jazz here in the NBA, because I find the Jazz really interesting. It's hard to bet on Jazz games right now because I don't want to lay this many points. But who wants to get in front of this juggernaut? I mean, like you've said before, John, and both of us really like the stock market, Wall Street. It's like catching a falling knife trying to go against the Jazz at this point. I don't want to take the points with Charlotte, but how do you really want to lay 13 here with the Jazz? I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you'd want to do with the Jazz here coming up in the near future.
Well, you basically summed it up. The Jazz are a team that you just cannot say that because they've won all but 3 of their last 22 against the spread that they're due to lose. That's just a recipe for losing more money. A lot of people say it's like flipping a penny and calling heads or tails, and you get 7 or 8 heads in a row. That therefore tails is due, or you get red on the roulette wheel 8 times, so black's due. It's called mutually exclusive from a statistical standpoint. The difference in basketball is that we have a market that changes the value and the probability that heads or tails is coming up. So now you have a situation where the market has priced Utah differently than they did a month and a half ago. But in my opinion, I have no clue whether that is a fair market value for Utah. They could easily get better and better and better, which is what they've been doing for the last 6 weeks. So that's where I would caution going against them. I know we all agreed on the Clippers on Friday night, and fortunately they won. But I would not go back to the well and expect them to regress. That's a word that Kyle uses an awful lot, and now because of that, I do too, because it really does point to the stock market, and a stock that is flown very high, going up every single day, and then all of a sudden it pauses. That doesn't mean it's going to crash. If the fundamentals are there, it's going to stay put. And the fundamentals on Utah right now are extraordinary.
Right. And I think Utah is a team that they catch people in bad spots a lot because they have a really great home court advantage because of the elevation as well. So if you find a team at the end of a road trip or something like that and they go to Utah, that could be one of those beatdown spots. And, Jazz, I can't bet against them, and I would caution people against betting against them right now. Let's wait and see. They are unlikely to play this well the entire season. We know that. But, trying to do that, their due theory, like you said, at some point you're going to be right, but you may have lost a bunch before you actually win. And, we want to try to end up in the long run. So I think the Jazz are a good team to either stay away from their games or find a way to bet them live right now and bet on them. Maybe they have a bad spot in the game. We've talked about live betting. I think the Jazz are just playing so well right now. I don't really want to go against them.
Yeah, and real quick along the same lines, the Knicks are 21-10 to the under, and that's a trend at 68%. And it's unlikely. In fact, I can't remember a team in the past at least 5 years that went that high a percentage under for the season. So now, not necessarily their next game, but over the next week, this is an opportunity, again, in my opinion, that you look for that over. So I don't know who's on the Knicks schedule yet, but if it's a high-flying team, such as the Jazz, that may present the opportunity to get some value and bet over with the Knicks involved.
It's interesting who they play next, John. The next couple games, I think you could get some value on these. The Warriors and the Kings. And the Kings, Kings defense is pretty similar to the Nets and the Wizards. The Kings don't play any defense, but they want to play really fast. The Warriors are a bit unique because they can be a little bit inconsistent on offense. Curry was out of that last game, so I guess I'd be careful betting on the over in the Warriors games until I know who's going to play at least. But that Kings game, I like looking ahead to that Knicks Kings game as a possible over, John.
What day of the week is that this week?
So the Knicks and Kings play on Thursday night. So let's keep our eye on that one for
Yeah,
Thursday
for
night.
sure.
That's definitely a potential play for John and I as well. So I like looking
Yep.
ahead to some of these games also. And before we go, I want to give one injury note here for tomorrow that some people might not have seen. This is kind of a look ahead for tomorrow. VCU's Nashawn Highland, their best player, Bones Highland, he goes by, out for tomorrow night's game. Averages 19 points per game. Make sure you know that before you bet on that St. Louis and VCU game.
Yeah, it's great information, Kyle. Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I know you have to go, so I guess we'll conclude today's show here, but I greatly appreciate your time, and we'll resume again next Wednesday with Kyle. And just thank you to all that are watching, and for the Predictive Playbook, I'm John Ryan, and may all the wins be yours.